I'd just like to thank Pastor Lucy and the rest of the Miracle Prayer Night team for giving me this opportunity to just share to you what God has really done in my life over the years. God has really blessed me with an amazing opportunity and a privilege to study overseas. And I just want to share with you a bit about my journey. I remember when I was in my mid to late teens, I had this huge desire in my heart to study a medically related course overseas. And at that time in the natural, it looked like a huge impossibility. There was no way that it was actually going to work out. And there were a few reasons for that, because back in the day I remember we weren't really able to even pay 2,000 rupees just for one of my tuition classes. And getting letters from my school with late payment notices was just a normal thing for us, and we were quite used to it. But as a family, we always knew that there was just one hope that we had, and that was Jesus. And that as long as we just held on to him, that he will never let us down. And one of my favorite verses is Psalm chapter 37, verse 4, where it says, "Delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." And we just held on to that, and we said, "Lord, this is my desire. And I know that you're a God of faithfulness, and that you will come through." And I'm just so honored and privileged to tell you that God has fulfilled that desire in my heart. And in 2012, that was 4 years ago, I remember I was in my church, at my church in Melbourne. And when I was there, I heard God's voice quite clearly. And he said, "I want you to empty your wallet into the offering bag that day." And knowing me back in the day, that was a big no-no. And I said, "God, are you kidding me?" And I just knew that even though that was virtually impossible, I really felt the conviction that God really wanted me to do it. And then I heard this voice say, "Obedience is your responsibility and outcome is mine." And when God said that, I knew that he meant business, and I knew that he was quite serious with what he said. So it was so hard for me because I had next to nothing in my bank account that day. And if I was to empty my wallet, I would have had nothing for the rest of the week. And I just said, "You know what, God, if you really want me to do it, I'm going to take the step of faith." But I said, "Lord, I am your responsibility, and I expect you to take care of me." And I emptied my wallet that day, and I came back home. And as soon as I came back home, I said, "Lord, what next? I mean, I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow." And he just said, "Trust in me," and that's it. And I went back to uni the next day. And when I was in uni, I was studying, I was doing some work. And in the afternoon, I get an email from my uncle who is in New Zealand. And to be honest, I didn't tell anyone about what I was going through. I didn't even tell my parents about what I was going through. And I just said, "You know what, Lord, you are the God of faithfulness, and you have asked me to do this, and I trust in you. And this is between you and I." And my uncle in that email said, "I want you to check your bank account." And I immediately opened my bank account, and I found out there was $1,700 in my bank account, which he deposited. So that was a huge thing in my life. And I just knelt down in the middle of my library. I didn't care who was watching. And I said, "God, thank you so much." And I was reminded of the story of Abraham and Isaac. When God spoke to Abraham and said, "I want you to sacrifice your son. I want you to give pretty much everything he had," because he was more than 100 years old. Sarah was pretty old, and that was all he had. And he was more than willing to do that. And because of that, God honored his faithfulness. And we call him the father of many nations, and God really honored him for that. And I was quite encouraged by that. And another instance, this happened just last year, 2015. I was on my way to uni. It's about a 20-minute walk from where I live to the train station. And while I was walking, and when I reached the train station, I realized that I left my wallet at home. And I was just I didn't have time to go back and grab my wallet because I was running late for class. I slept in that morning, by the way. And when I was there, I just said, "Lord, I really want you to come through," because I'm a huge fan of Pastor Colton. He is one of my role models, and I've read his book about 5 or 6 times in my life, and I try to read it every single year because it's such an encouragement for me. And I said, "God, you have done amazing things in Pastor Colton's life. When you read his book, you just know how God supernaturally provided for him at the last moment." And I said, "God, if you can do it for Pastor Colton, you can surely do it for me." And I had all the faith in the world that he was going to come through. And when I was at the train station, I just opened my backpack, and I found that there was $5 in my backpack, and the train ticket cost $4.90, and I paid for my train ticket, and I was on my way to uni. And while I was on my way, I was like, Lord, there's two other things, because I need my lunch and dinner, because I'm really specific about my food, and I need a way, because I need to come back home, and I have nothing on me at the moment. And I just went to uni, and around 1:30, around lunchtime, I was feeling a bit hungry, and I get this call from an unknown number. Usually if it's from an unknown number, I usually don't pick up when I'm at uni, but I just thought, I'm just going to pick it up anyway. And it was a person from the student services department, and she was like, by the way, congratulations, you won this $50 voucher, all you can eat voucher at the university food court, and you can eat as much as you want for $50. And I was just like, that's amazing. And she's like, when do you want to pick it up? I was like, can I come immediately? And then I just ran to the student services department, picked it up, ran all the way to the food court, and I was just enjoying my meal. And I'm just thinking the people around me would have thought, this guy's from a third world country and he's never seen food before. That's how hungry I was. And that's just what God has pretty much done in my life, and that's just a glimpse of what He has done. And one of my favorite books in the Bible is the book of Philippians. And in the book of Philippians, chapter 4 is my absolute favorite chapter. And in that, in verse 4, Paul talks about rejoicing in the Lord. And in verse 6, he talks about, don't worry about anything, instead pray about everything. And in verse 7, he talks about the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. And he finishes it up with verse 13 when he says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And the most amazing bit about that really captivated me was that he wrote all that when he was stuck inside a prison cell. And for him to say all that and give God all the glory was quite encouraging for me. And what I learned about God and His provision is that it's so important that I myself, that I just build that foundation on what Paul built his foundation on. And at times it's hard, like even for me right now, if I'm being really honest, I'm not even sure how things are going to work out for me in the future. I'm not sure how we will even pay our fees in the future, but I know one thing, that my God will supply all my needs according to His riches and glory. So He up to date has never failed me, and I know that in the future is never going to fail me either. So I really hold on to that. And one thing that I've really learned is that our God is a God of seasons. Some seasons we go through trials, tribulations, testings, whatnot. But one big thing that I've learned over the years is that in every season He's the same. And because He is the same, He's always with us in every season. And because He's with us, I have the victory in every season. So I give Him all the glory. Thank you.